The greatest artist of all time. A guy came up to me the other night, right, and said, "Who is your favorite artist?" And like most people do when they ask a question, he didn't really care about what my answer was and proceeded to tell me what he thought the true answer was. And he continued in the struggle to recognize who he said was the greatest of all time. He said, is it Shakespeare or is it Frost, Picasso, Michelangelo, the Beatles, Rembrandt, Michael Jackson, Beethoven? And he went on and on about who he thought was the greatest, not recognizing not even his infrastructure to answer that question was misled and outdated. And so finally, I kindly smiled and said, "Okay, sir, you asked me who was the greatest of all time. Now you shared yours, so let me share mine. Because there's no debate on who's the greatest. Because all those other artists you mentioned, yeah, the greatest made them. You see, the artist is a beast, a lion, a name above names. You don't even realize it, but you encounter his art every day. And he deserves all the acclaim, he deserves all the fame, because all the other artists pass away, but he remains. Oh, by the way, his name is God, Yahweh, the Creator, your Maker. He's infinitely creative, so there is no one greater. And I can tell it looks like you're starting to get mad at me, but don't be jealous. Just because your favorite artist might bend words, my favorite artist bends galaxies. See, in the palm of his hand, he holds all the sand, the author of life, when he whispers, 'Let us make man.' See, what if I told you that you are God's poetry? You were created because someone else was creative. See, long ago, he picked up his eternal paintbrush, dipped it in his glory, placed us in a story, and said they will live for me. And I know it sounds outlandish, but we are not the product of some random chances. In fact, we're not even the vine, we are actually the branches. In the same way, we are not the artist, we are actually the canvas. Because in an instant, God started to make art, shaped you uniquely and beautifully individual from the start. And he touched the canvas of flesh, and he said, "This one is better than the rest. I'll give him so much of my image. When he's hot off the press, you can still see the steam from my breath." So he made every arm and leg, ligaments, tendons, muscles, blood vessels, veins, arteries. Said, "They're gonna have a part of me." And about that time, the guy butted back in and said, "That sounds good and all, but I'm wretched and filthy. God won't use me, will he?" And I said, that's what's awesome about God. No matter what we've done, he can still use us. Even though other artists, once they have broken equipment, they start to make excuses, God instead doesn't refuse us, and neither does he accuse us. He redeems us in Jesus, promises never to lose us. So stop saying that you're dirt. Stop saying that you're scum of the earth. You ought to be careful how you talk about someone else's work. Because if we trusted in Jesus, we could stop saying we're filthy. All that is anyways is just pride clothed in false humility. If we only believed that we're truthfully created in his likeness, then we'd stop saying we're wretched, filthy, shameful, guilty, but instead knowing if we trusted, we were righteous. Don't you see we're drawn to repent because of his kindness? So how dare you call yourself worthless when he says we're priceless? See, but the best part is, since God is ultimately for God, he will get glory out of you whether you like it or not. Because even temple ruins point to an architect, even if the temple is shot. And all I am saying is that he is behind it all. So why don't we insist on giving him credit at all? He's the one who gave Van Gogh the imagination that changed the face of painting. Tell me who else is responsible for Mozart being able to compose at age 5 without training? See, he made the fingers that made That Beethoven made art on the keys. For Pete's sake, he made Stevie Wonder one of the best musicians of our time, and he couldn't even see. And that's why, in the same way that our lives are borrowed time, this poem is borrowed lines. Because the most ridiculous statement we could ever say is that this poem is mine. Because we're not self-sustaining, we're not self-creating. Technically, nothing we do is original, we're just imitating. And that's not a diss. All I'm trying is this. Even our creativity is nothing more than an outflow of His. So I'll end with this. You know that quote about giving credit where credit is due? Well, if that's true, it's about time we gave God His rightful credit too. Because He's God in the business of making old things new. And here's the truth, He's not through making a masterpiece of you.